America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and I come to you every Friday about this time where I try to talk to you about local politics and politics in a way that helps Black people try to secure power and democratize power in these United States, because I'm tired of Black people being slaves or internal colonies in a nation that's not properly ours. And when it will be properly ours will be a time when we actually have power and we can determine our own communities and actually even determine our opposition. So what does all that mean? Well, let me show you what that means in one instance. All right, so Michael Bloomberg, in his, infinite charity, and it's functionally infinite. He's worth $60 billion. So in his infinite charity, he gave $100 million to historically Black medical schools. That seems to be great because historically Black medical schools create a disproportionate number of Black doctors. The problem is going to be that now Michael Bloomberg gets to decide who gets to be a doctor. Like that shouldn't be how we decide what's good for Black communities. And there are consequences to this, right? So there's a section in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, one of his big texts, that's often taught, where it says that politics appears to be of this nature, for it is what ordains which of the sciences should be studied in the state, and which of each class of citizens should learn up to what point they should and up to what point they should learn them. All right. So politics is what decides what people should learn and up to what point they should learn them. That's why we have public school curricula and all that stuff, right? So if we need more medical schools, then we build more medical schools and make it attractive for doctors to go to medical schools. But that shouldn't be up to Michael Bloomberg's discretion. That should be a political decision with public accountability. What do we need? What does the community need? Yes, we need more Black doctors. Yes, we need more medical schools. Yes, we need HBCUs to be funded. But that shouldn't be, what we don't need is to have all of this dependent on Mike Bloomberg liking us. Mr. Stop and Frisk Mike Bloomberg. And there's actually a larger story to this insofar as, remember when Mike Bloomberg ran for mayor, he got all these endorsements from Black people who he's given money to, or promised to give money to, offered to give money to. This is Michael Thurman, who is famous in Georgia because he was a Black guy who won for a statewide office, and there aren't a lot of Black people who won for statewide office. Mind you, it was labor commissioner, not like senator, but he was a Black guy who won a Democratic primary and then was democratically elected for a statewide office. This was right before the realignment, so you still had Democrats in statewide power before all of the white racists left. We had just enough to get voting majorities. So Thurman was the statewide Black Democrat, and that's what he's known for. And he's also has a radio station. And remember, when he made this endorsement, Bloomberg was spending $500 million in advertising and staff and all of that stuff. So, Michael Thurman, he's currently the CEO, which is a weird position to have for a county, but he's currently the CEO of DeKalb County, a rather large county in Georgia. And he endorsed Bloomberg, I think, for the money and for the promise of money, because you have to understand, it's not as if all of the nonprofits in the United States get money from Bloomberg or Gates, but all of the nonprofits in the United States would like to get money from Bloomberg or Gates. So they're not going to do anything that would actually tick off a Bloomberg or a Gates. And that's why you have, for example, Stacey Abrams, right? Takes $5 million of cash to do her voter initiative, which is a good initiative, right? Black people should be able to vote in Georgia. Stacey Abrams is trying to be able to make sure that more people vote in Georgia. Also, she does that knowing that they vote Democrat and will vote for her. But in general, it's good for people to be able to vote. So if Bloomberg's money allows Stacey Abrams' organization, which, employs a lot of Black people. I know a lot of my friends at one point in time worked for Stacey Abrams' organizations, and they were all Black. So if Bloomberg's money allows her to employ Black people, to get Black people to vote, that's good, right? But our voting shouldn't be at the discretion of Bloomberg's money, because Bloomberg's also the guy who will use his political power to distort government such that you need to go to a Michael Bloomberg for services, right? So it's charity, but it's charity that's only considered charity because the government's not doing its job, right? Like we should have a public process to get money to HBCUs and a public process to secure voting, but it's done by Bloomberg's charity because Bloomberg has bought the politicians who have gutted the quality of legislation and political thought that it would take to get the government to secure these goods as right. And since that's not the case, they're not secured as right, we need to go to, guess who, Bloomberg. You know, Dave Chappelle had this skit in his last comedy special where he took it from Iceberg Slim, a pimp, and it was about like the complicated strategies that the pimp came up with in order to get, at the end of the day, the prostitute to be grateful that she was the prostitute for this pimp. It's kind of like that. And I'll explain a little bit more after the break. Hit the beat.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and it can feature in your front.
So at the tail end of one of Dave Chappelle's latest Netflix specials, he gives an elaborate story about a pimp who kind of distorts the prostitute's like version of reality or vision of reality. He sets her up in such a way that at the end of the story, the prostitute is very happy and is eager to work for the pimp. That is the situation of black people and Michael Bloomberg. Right? So Michael Bloomberg spent a decade championing stop and frisk and harassing black people for the comfort of white capital in New York. And now, you know, we are in a position because our community is degraded that we need his charity. And so when he gives $100 million to historically black medical schools, we look at him as like some sort of savior, right? And this is HBCUs are ticklish arenas for this fight because, I mean, a lot of them started by, the idea was started by Booker T. Washington, who spent a lot of his money shaking down white people and saying what they needed to hear, including that like they don't have to share power with us as long as they give him money to start schools for us. So, and then you have, they fired W.B. Du Bois. W.B. Du Bois was fired from from Atlanta. It was just Atlanta University at the time, for suggesting that the white donors don't actually care about black community uplift, because the white donors did not actually care about black community uplift, and they felt some sort of way. And they called the manager on W.B. Du Bois, who was probably one of the most prolific and found like fundamentally important academics America has ever produced. I mean, he pretty much founded America's sociology and changed philosophy in a way. And as I'm a fan of, he brought Hegel into philosophy. I mean, Hegel, like I study Hegel. The boys did too. And you can just tell that we're of the same mind. And there is a way in which, yeah, he got fired from Atlanta University for suggesting that these white donors aren't really about community uplift. And you have to imagine Howard Zinn also got fired from Spelman University, another HBCU, for radicalizing too many students. I think Alice Walker went there and then came out with ideas. So she had to transfer, or either she graduated. I know Zinn didn't survive Spelman. But the idea is that these people give money in order to control us, not so that we can control ourselves. And that's a problem. By the way, if you like anything I'm doing, depending on who you talk to, I'll make myself down white unemployable by continuing the show, which I will do until they take me out. Go to www.thefunkyacademic.com or funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 every month, because, you know, I try to give a quality of political knowledge that's not, you're not going to get in schools, because schools are trying to look for those Gates grants and look for that Jeff Bezos grants and look for that Bloomberg money, right? So what I'm trying to tell you now is that this security is a kind of a longer con that is centered in population control. He's not going to democratize control, like democratize power. What this does is by fealty. If he's worth $60 billion. $100 million is like 0.01% of his worth. It's like you taking your girlfriend out for like a nice dinner, right? So like it's not real money to him. But in terms of the fealty, now he's invited to all the barbecues because he might cough and spit out $1 million, and that'll get you invited to all the barbecues because while we cook good barbecue, we're also cheap. So you can get a lot of black people to say a lot of things for $1 million. And he has. But what does that mean? It means we're charity slaves because we don't actually have rights. Rights are secured by government in a public process. We have to make sure, Michael Bloomberg likes us. And that's no way to live life. That is no way to live life. And what it does is, even if you're not, like, so many nonprofits are on the dole of Michael Bloomberg and Gates, it's not as if you're directly on their dole, but you're not going to do anything to tick them off, right? Because they might write you a check in the future, or they might write one of your partners a check. And these are petty people. So if you tick them off, they're going to put you on a blacklist, and then your partners will start drying up. Athens is a town. I'm in Athens, Georgia right now, with an enormous poverty rate, anywhere from 32 to 38, depending on who you talk to. And the black population is, about a third. So it's just it's black people. There are some poor white people here, but like there are like in the same way that there are some white poor people here, there are some black people with money, but like the vast majority of them are poor and like generationally poor. So we have a lot of nonprofits that sustain poverty in Athens because it's not about democratizing power that would actually sustain community uplift. Instead, these nonprofits run on a charity model where they're not trying to democratize public power. They're trying to just kind of make themselves feel good. It's about the donor experience. So what does that mean for black community uplift? It means we need to get honest, and we need to be honest about this as a variety of slavery. They talk about NBA players being $40 million slaves because they, tear up their bodies for their white owners and the fans. And depending on who you talk to, that includes UGA football. But we don't talk about the slavery of being charity slaves, where we have to depend on Mike Bloomberg. We can't say no, because part of autonomy, part of self-determination is being able to negate other people. If other people have designs on you, and if other people have plans, and their plans include you and have designs on you, you need to be able to say no to their plans. But if Bloomberg controls all of your check, any plan he has that includes you, he's gonna be able to realize, even if it includes you, because you're not gonna be able to say no to his plan. You might have a counter plan, but you're not gonna say no. You're gonna give up your counter plan to go on to his plan because he's the guy who writes the check. And that's the problem. And that's an enormous problem. And so you need to democratize power. In order to democratize power, you have to start talking about democratizing money or securing institutions such that you're not on, like, you don't need him for your freedom. You don't need Mike Bloomberg. Right? But if Stacey Abrams' voting initiative is tied to a Mike Bloomberg, then like our basic rights are not secured by government. Their basic rights are secured by Stacey Abrams being nice to Mike Bloomberg. And black voting not being particularly threatening to Bloomberg's prowess. Because Bloomberg also spends a good amount of money electing the quality of Democrats and Republicans who will make it the case that you need to go to charity in order to have your rights secured. All right. So I hope I've clarified how the charity pimps are actually doing their work. And go take a look at. I think it really is. It's one of his latest specials. on Netflix, and he ends with a very long and detailed story about Iceberg Slim, and how pimping is psychological. And make no mistake, as Bloomberg pimps out the black community, it is psychological. And with that, I will give you this. I'm a huge fan of biting the hand that feeds you, so we need to bite hands that feed us. It's ours anyway. They're only feeding us because they took our money, right? So we need to get in the business of biting the hands that feed us. Peace. If you appreciate the work I do every week and you think that I should continue to do it because I'm giving you the quality of political knowledge and insight that will help you not squander your life and kind of rescue meaning from it, then go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, or make one enormous donations. I like the monthlies because it allows me to budget more, and that'll help me, with a marketing budget or getting better equipment that works all the time. Because in a lot of ways, freedom means having equipment that works every time you turn it on. And I want to be a free Negro. So if you like what I do, go to funkyacademic.com and contribute. Thanks often comes in the form of cash, and the site takes credit cards.